Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another Saturday night sci-fi Shadow Chat. To my left, I guess, is the little guy, Woodcrawler Gaming. How's it going, sport?
Contrary to my... What? Oh,
I didn't say a word.
Aren't I? I mean, I guess depending on how you look at it, I'm on your left or right. But at least the way I see it, I am on the right, which makes a lot of sense considering the fact that that's where I usually am, always right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just saying that to somebody else the other day, but in regards to myself, not you. So, you ready for your big trip?
Yes.
Okay, hope
I'm not
so.
in the basement, so I don't know what you mean by that.
To Mexico.
Oh, you actually pronounced it right. That's surprising.
Yeah. Don't get used to it.
I won't.
So, are you ready?
Yes, I am in fact ready.
You're all packed up, ready to hit the road?
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right. Well, be safe, be careful, and bring me back lots of souvenirs.
I'll bring you a rock. Does that count? No, you like those?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I do, but not just any old rock. Hey, TCG, what's happening, man? So tonight we're going to talk about alien flora and fauna, how we can use these in our RPGs and not gloss over them and not make them the same old, man-eating plants or, some sort of reskinned earth creatures, whether
You
they
may not
be,
believe this, but I used to be an expert on the subject.
Oh, do tell.
I will.
I gotta get...
In just a moment.
Hey, Raven, how you doing? Welcome to the show. Hope it's nowhere near as hot where you are as it is here, because even in the studio it's 4,000 degrees because we're about a quarter mile from the sun right now.
No, we're on the sun.
We're on the sun?
Yeah, we're on the sun.
So tell us about your expertise. I am dying to hear this.
Okay, so a long time ago, probably a couple years ago, I was for some bizarre reason, I decided that I wanted to make a evolutionary chart for one of my worlds. This is not something I recommend you do if your sci-fi story has several worlds. If it's focusing on one, I absolutely recommend that you do this. Though the best videos on the subject were made by a communist, so I'm not too sure how you would proceed on that. But what I can tell you with absolute certainty is that it is genuinely very fun, and it's very epic to do. Though I, of course, stopped when I found out that the guy making the video series was a communist. So I lost most of my expertise. But I do still have the book on the actual evolutionary chart. Or at least, I think I still have the book. It's probably in a box or in a pile of other books somewhere. And I don't really care to... Actually, I'll probably look for them and then show them to you, depending on how much I actually wrote down. But, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, though I don't recommend, or I don't really expect, anyone's going to, oh, well, I want to design the planet to have, 5% salt in the atmosphere so that when the salt falls into the water, the animals can, use it to make more shells or something for them and weird stuff like that. They make shells out of sodium using the water and they're using the salt in the water. It's like, okay, sure, you can do that.
Howdy, Max. Long time no see.
Hello? It's interesting. It's interesting to see you here today. But yeah, there is absolutely a lot that can go into it. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that I can like go about explaining it if you want, but I know we'll probably
Sure.
get there as we get there, or I imagine we'll get there as we get there.
I did put the link in there if one of our regular friends wants to join us. But I'm actually curious what you did learn. I have some thoughts. What I do regularly when I, spruce up an alien world. But
Well,
what do you got?
the most important thing that I learned is that every species on a planet will have. The most important thing I learned is body plans. Body plans are essentially the way. It's I guess It's not that complicated. It's just it's. I need to try to refresh my memory, but I think they're called body plans. It's essentially the most basic plan for the body of an animal. How many limbs it has, what it uses to see, how it eats, how it not even necessarily how it reproduces, but literally just how does it get energy through the body, how does it move, what does it do, the most basic. And essentially, if you are going to do from like an evolutionary thing on designing your world, which if it is about one specific planet, I absolutely think that it's not required, but it would be very helpful for a lot of things. And yeah, you can I highly doubt that in John Carter this stuff was used, but you do see trends with like multiple limbs. It's kind of stuff like that, but more specific. And on Earth, there's what?
Like a planet where all the critters have 3 eyes, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, like how in Subnautica, for example, you can actually. Okay, I don't. I think I'm about to. There we go.
Technical difficulty sport.
Yeah, a tiny bit.
Please stop that.
So, anyways, what I was saying. For example, Subnautica, you can create a fairly accurate evolutionary tree just based on all the designs. And I don't know if that's something they did specifically and intentionally. They very well could have. And I don't know, but there's a video like explaining that whole thing. But it makes the world.
Give me an example of how Subnautica went about.
Well, if you know Subnautica, you can see several. Like, for example, if you see, there are some things which are very obvious, like the boomerang fish, and then there's just the red boomerang fish that live in the active lava zone, and that's basic stuff of just you have a species, and then it had one group of them gets sent to this area. I'm drawing it on a whiteboard, but that you can't see. But one gets sent to one area, one gets sent to another area, and then they evolve differently. And then you see like the same thing with the most famous fish from the game, the peeper. You see that in just like generic one-eyed fish, and then you do see lower in the area that there's a version of it that has like tentacles in the back. But then you can also see that the sea dragon Leviathan also has those very same tentacles in the back, and then the sea emperor has those same tentacles in the back. Just instead of having a dragon lizard face and hands, it has a weird bug face with praying mantis claws. We don't have VR, but that's something I've really wanted to do. I haven't played Subnautica in a bit, but that's just because I've been really too busy with it. It's very, very Oh, who is this?
Random. Yeah. Well, he doesn't see there's no name at the bottom, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because when you have a comment pinned, it removes the names.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Hello?
So it's just me. You guys gonna have to use your imagination when it comes to visualizing Jackie and Omen. How you doing, Omen?
I'm doing fine. Was out swimming, came back in, took a quick shower, and saw that you're on there. Like, ooh, alien flora and fauna. We don't use enough alien flora. There's plenty of fauna, but not enough flora.
Right. I mentioned at the beginning. I want to come up with some ideas besides the the stereotypical, man-eating plant nonsense that uh, we see on every, not every, but you get my meaning. Just about every alien planet's got some form of, the horrible, tooth Venus flytrap sort of critter, not even critter, obviously plant that just doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of plants out there that are pretty dangerous, and they don't need to rely on trying to eat you that way. They usually find some other way, and you die near the plant, and then you just rot, and they get the nutrients that way. Which on an evolutionary scale, that would be much more likely that they might develop that. They're very patient. They're not in a hurry to
Yeah, but
hurry up
the
and
thing is
gobble
that
you up.
people like in doing this kind of stuff, they like doing things that don't exist on Earth. So to just have everything be exactly as it is on Earth.
Well, the let's be honest. You want to go out there and if you really wanted to do weird things, you have singing grass. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do where the
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and if you're actually looking at we all talk about flora and fauna, but everyone seems to forget the fungi. And how that goes. If you actually look at some of the stuff.
Well, not if we're playing Call of Cthulhu. Real quick, Max says, I love flora as fauna, man-eating plants that can move. Max, you missed out on the original Gamma World first, second, and third edition. You'd have been a natural.
The Plantian for MCC has that too, so it's not like you can't. Which
No, I know, but I mean, I'm always a huge proponent of the original games, the ones that have been emulated so many times since they came out. Gamma World's always going to have a special place, in
But see, I never
my
grew up
heart.
with Gamma World. That was it. Is Gamma World I could never find anywhere, and it wasn't until more recent times. That's the problem that you get with it is, regardless of how you look at it, is when you start talking about certain things. But I was talking about with the fungi where they actually communicate between the trees, and that's actually where you can get some of the stuff, whether you like it or not, is when they do Avatar and how everything starts linking itself in between the plants. And there's some really cool stuff out there. But, we also forgetting about pollen, which admittedly they did in, what was that horrible film with an Alien Covenant? Anyway, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you get a lot of these things out there, but even if you say we're going to use stuff that's Earth-like, you get these really thick trunks, things that dwarf you, giant toadstools. Well, there you go. There exactly.
Variations on the pitcher plant, where you may not realize that it's a pitcher plant. It's actually a small pond or a lake. Maybe it has tentacles that push you in, and then suddenly, you're all gooped up in sap or something like that. I started thinking, I was reminded of this old, I think it was Heavy Metal. No, it wasn't Heavy Metal magazine. It was Creepy or Eerie magazine, where these people went to a new planet, and it had these things like banana trees, and the suits of the astronauts were these big, bulky things where their arms barely could move. They were just over exaggerated space suits. And to make a long story short, the astronaut went out looking for to harvest it, and he slipped on one and died basically on his back, unable to get up because of the suit being so ridiculously large, and he was laying on a field of banana peels. It was pretty funny.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about this, not everything has to be even negative. You get the
absolutely, that's a good point.
It's like I said, you can have singing grass, you could have singing trees, you could have it where it just seems to kind of follow you around, where it sways to whatever you do. You can make them stuff like that. The other part is, let's not forget about everyone's favorite alcohol that's being fermented. They can make their own drugs and everything else and medicinal properties. Especially if it's a trading aspect of, hey, look, you can get this and this helps deal with that. Like, oh, okay. Oh, this will work.
Absolutely. Just like the rainforest, we're finding all kinds of crazy stuff there because, most people haven't been there. And you throw in modern science, we're going to find all kinds of interesting and beneficial uses for the plants that are there. An alien planet would have, the entire surface of it covered with things that we've, never had any experience with. Although I really, really hate the trope of the alien planet having pine trees and all the same stuff we have, even though I do believe that that's actually a possibility. It kind of bothers me a little bit that, they don't try to, come up with new plants and things like that, just fake it, whether it's with CGI or, practical special effects, just they used to do it on Star Trek all the time. They'd make, weird plants like the one that shot Spock in the neck with the freaking pollen things, or stuff like that. Just you only need a few scenes to sell the idea that the plants aren't identical to Earth plants.
Well, I mean, even when you talk about convergent evolution, or whenever you start doing that, is you can still get thorns. I don't know if anyone's actually been out in the, when you start dealing with the the jumping cactus that stabs you. Not that it's more of an impediment for movement, which a lot of people forget. Not everything has to be dangerous. It can just slow you the hell down. And then the other part is, plants act as homes, so you can get these. I don't know if we have some similar, but you can get where the trunks hold entire civilizations inside of them, which immediately kind of get the Avatar feeling for that.
Or Carson of Venus. There was that. The first book, the people lived in these giant trees that were, hundreds of yards wide, and and they had virtual cities in a single tree.
But yeah, I mean, you could do that if part of it is, I think, whenever you're designing stuff, is look at what's around. If there's a different color sun, then you may get different color looking plants. So everyone's used to green for chlorophyll, but from my understanding, they used to have red and purple for some.
Yeah, I think that there's I don't know the exact science behind it, but if you really want to get deep into it, I know for a fact that you can come up with excuses for literally any color of plant that you want. I mean, that whole evolutionary thing I was talking about earlier applies to plants just as much.
Well, here's the thing that you have to be careful about evolution. Evolution only cares about who has children. It doesn't, and that determines its fitness. You can be like the super whatever, but if you don't survive, or you don't breed fast enough, then you're getting an evolutionary dead end. And evolution.
Well, yeah, but if you're in control of it, because you're writing it, you can just say, "Oh, well, it exists. It managed to surpass this because of something."
Well, and I agree with RPG Grandma. The best thing to do is start figuring out and then seeing what works out and use what's out there. The truth of it is even if you use real world plants, there are enough weird things out there. Like, there's a plant where where what it does is it kind of traps like the insects, but it doesn't kill the insect. It just makes them go along the entire path, and that way they can fertilize the flower. So, your players can be stuck in this and like, well, we can't go out. We have to keep going forward. And then they just get out like, well, what happened? You're like, well, you're covered in pollen dust. That's the reason why. There's a lot of, part of, to me, why you have the alien flora is to make it feel alien and wonderful and different. Right. Not everything has to be dangerous. Some of it is, this is an absolute paradise. We aren't going to mark it on the map.
Right. How many times have we seen people trying to eat the fruit off of alien plants, and it's either really, really good or instant death and poisonous. I tend to believe that unless the entire planet is somewhat toxic to begin with, you'd probably be able to eat some of the stuff. It may not agree with you, it may mess you up, but whether it kills you instantly, I kind of have a problem with that. Hey, TCG has a question for you. Do you have any examples of bug art? Giant man-eating bugs are staple in the game I'm making, so I'm looking for good bug art. He kind of does, and he kind of doesn't.
Most of
You'd have
the
to, yeah, go for it.
most of the bugs that I draw are more on the humanoid side, like Franks and the like. Though most are more based on other bugs, not grasshoppers. But I mean, I can certainly provide if you want some. Though, admittedly, I'm not going to be able to do that much over the next 2 weeks because I'm going to be in another place.
Speaking of
Galaxy
which,
far, far away.
go wander around there and see the weird things. I'll tell you this much: go look at fungi, and they have some of the weirdest different shapes out there, and that
Oh
feels
yeah,
completely alien. If you really want to talk about floras, go look at the. We normally think of toadstools and stuff, but then you've got the puffballs, you've got things like lion's mane, you got oyster. All those things can go out there, and the great thing about some of the science fiction is you can start combining things. The other part is anyone that's actually seen like grow, man, they bulk up real. The flowering so that comes out, and then of course they spray all the spores around, and there's some really
No,
cool
Mexico,
stuff.
Mac. He's going to Mexico.
Oh yeah, well it is prison. No, I'm just
The way some people talk, right?
no. Actually, the real thing, Jack, is are you going to be eating bugs while you're there?
am I going to be what?
Eating bugs in Mexico.
We don't do that. Okay, we are civilized down there.
You
At least half
lie,
the
you
time.
lie, because I have talked to several people that do eat bugs down there, and they said they're absolutely delicious. And I've been there myself, so yes, they do, especially the crickets. No. You actually what he's missing at is the chocolate covered
Ants.
the ants, which I haven't tried. I'd actually like to try those. And then there's some other ones that they have out there that are. But I talked to
Where was this in Mexico?
she was up in the mountains talking about some of the grubs they would grab out of there.
Was it in Jalisco?
I'm not sure. It was up in the mountains, like about 10,000 feet or so.
Okay, because that makes a bit more sense. Because
So she said they were absolutely delicious when I was asking her, native, traditional Mexican food.
Oh, you're killing me, Grandma.
Actually, aren't those just called, crawfish? No, they're little lamb.
I just refuse to eat bugs out of principle.
I don't.
you.
It's not that I'm against it. I just don't want to be forced to eat it. Those are two very different things. If I'm willing to eat crab and I'm willing to eat crawfish, I'm more than willing to eat some spiders and a few other things if they're delicious. But yeah, it's not out of principle that I'll eat them. That's generally like human beings out of principle. But it's the other stuff that. You know what?
I want to go back to that fungi thing. When you think about locusts are kosher. Oh dear God, you guys are killing me.
Are they? I mean, they may be, but don't care.
If you know a little bit about fungi, I can see entire planets being nothing but that. Even to the point of using like H.P. Lovecraftian mobile fungi, the fungi from a Yuggoth, things like that, where they're flying around or crawling around, just because the planet is so freaking old that the evolutionary path led to the fungi, walking around and doing stuff, making houses and having guilds and businesses and things like that. I could see that being a nice break from the usual, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here is making your alien worlds so different that your players are going to remember it. Too many times I've been on or in games where I couldn't even remember the name of the last town I was in because it was just like every other one we had been before, categorized by large, medium, and small towns and cities, that sort of thing where, everything looks the same, the people are all the same. There's just not enough dialogue and narration given to the descriptions of these things. And hopefully with just a few short phrases and the right worded sentences, we can make a world or a solar system that is so memorable that the players, either recoil in fear when you mention the name, or start, their mouths start watering when they're thinking about the alien delicacies or the entertainment or things like that stick in the players' minds.
So I'm going to mention a great book, which is a little bit different than it's some of what we're talking about. But if you can find Mycelium Running, because we're talking about things that you can use for this, there's some really cool stuff in there talking about stuff. But one of them is, not that we think about it so much, but actually using fungi to, how do I want to say this, to actually remediate. So they're actually there are instances of actually using it to remediate against VX nerve gas, and you know what? That's what happens when you dye your little chickens. Stop dyeing your chickens, and then they're okay. but no, but like VX nerve gas. What are some other ones that are out there? Oil spills. There's a lot of cool stuff that can be out there that we don't really think of, but at least gives something very interesting of what happens to the players when they come out and you're looking at it and said, oh, look at all these mushrooms growing out there. And then your scientist goes, wait a minute, those only grow on VX nerve gas. We're in a bad area. I mean, you can use it in that aspect as well.
Right. Because the more alien the planet, the more alien the atmosphere, and even the composition of the planet. It could be made of green cheese or whatever that will run you down another rabbit hole of what kind of life forms you're going to find, and just go nuts with it. You don't really have to do a lot of scientific deep dives into the things. You could just let them figure it out, and they'll come up with theories, and then you can go, oh, you pick one and don't tell them, and then when they go further on down that line of questioning, you can clue them into, oh yeah, you were right, good for you, here's some XP, thank you for helping me build this world, because I put it together on short notice.
Well, there are other things here, which is always the terrifying part since we're on there, which is the fungi that takes over the ant and its life cycle. So
those things are kind of gay.
No, you need to learn to increase your vocabulary.
Fair enough.
But I mean, there's
right.
that. The other part is well, it's not going to radiation. There's some weird things going on with that. But the other part that you want to look at is, we're looking at it this way, but and I'm just going to keep on the fungus part. What happens when it gets into your fuel, and all of a sudden it starts going bonkers and eating all your fuel? Now what do you do? Mm-hmm. I mean, not that it's necessarily dangerous to you, but just the sheer inconvenience. All of a sudden, it starts getting into, your fuel. So now you can't use it. Now it starts clogging things up. There's a lot of stuff that I think that's really cool with that.
Yeah, and you can even throw in little red herrings. Like suddenly all the exterior of your ship is changing color. Something simple like that. It's really not doing anything harmful. It's just because of a certain reaction between two different things going on, and they're going to just go freaking nuts. Oh no, our ship's turning green. Oh no. And they'll come up with all kinds of countermeasures, and in the long run maybe it was really nothing, or maybe it was going to make your ship go faster because it was turning it red. Who knows?
Well, the other part is when it gets into your food, and all of a sudden your food spoils. These are things that happen nowadays that we all forget about. It's like, oh, well, what happened to all of our food stocks? Okay, this is what we're going to have to do. What was it? If you remember the old Star Frontiers, there was the fungus that would take over you for a while, and then within like 24 or 48 hours, you were nothing but fungus over time.
There was even things like that in Dungeons and Dragons. There was I think it was the yellow fungi or something like that did that, or yellow mold zombies and things like that.
Yeah.
You could pull so much from just some basic just change things just a little bit. And if you do it right, suddenly you're looking at a crazy world. I was thinking about, hey, Brian, what's happening? I was thinking about the
What's up, guys?
in
Hey,
Elder Scrolls and Morrowind and
Hey.
not EverQuest, where that one place, I forget where it was, Sean could tell us, where everybody lived in these giant freaking mushrooms. They didn't look like your typical gnomish mushrooms from, Dave the Gnome.
Gnomes? Question mark?
Solstein. Solstein. That's where they live in those giant mushrooms.
Right, with those giant walking fleas that they used as
Yeah.
transport. Yeah, that was one of the most interesting looking places I'd ever seen. Not saying I'd want to live there. The lava was, kind of crazy, but it was so alien. They really did a really good job with that one location, which was pretty big. Take care, Max. Thanks for stopping by. The little guy and I will have to come by and check out one of your shows real soon. We've just been freaking super busy with a secret project we'll talk to you about real soon, I hope. So what's up, Brian? How you doing? What piqued your interest about the alien flora and fauna?
Oh man, I love that kind of stuff. I love critters. Being weird World War II, we got all sorts of critters. So it could be flowers or animals or monsters or aliens or whatever. I'm all into that stuff.
well, the other aspects we're looking at this when we did this, but but the other part is that you can also look at anyone remember the great tulip craze in the 1600s?
Oh
Right,
yeah,
right.
with the Dutch.
Well, not personally, I'm not that old,
Yeah.
but yeah, I remember reading about it. Right, where if the players came across a really new and interesting but completely harmless flower, they could theoretically use that as a way to make some money. Especially in a game like Traveler, where apparently everybody thinks that it's all about spreadsheets and buying and selling, and that bores the living crap out of me. But some people want to do that in their game, thinking that's what you're supposed to do. Personally, I think it's all about adventure.
You could kind of do the whole potato famine. You get those kind of lines where you're offering this super vegetable to some outer rim colony, and then you're the people yeah, this is great, but they don't know that it's only got a lifespan or blah 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 whatever. And now you become the sole provider for this, and then you build your empire and fleecing the outer rim with your super carrot.
Right. Even just something that's readily available there, but it's only available on one planet. You could strike it rich by, coming up with a dish and then serving it somewhere, and it becoming all the rage, and everybody wants it, and now you're out there looking for tubers on whatever planet. I was trying to come up with a name quick, but that just eluded me.
Another cool idea would be you're doing your Traveler stuff, you're flying around, you land in your space port, okay? You're there for a couple days, do it, and all of a sudden, Day of the Triffids, man, or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, something weird, and you can just, oh Jesus, a fucking cat. But yeah, you can you as a DM or what is the Traveler? What do they call the Traveler guy? A GM?
Referee, I think.
Referee?
I think, yeah.
I mean, the referee can just, out of nowhere, you're okay, guys, your favorite, comms link operator for your spaceport is acting kind of strange. He's not quite, and you go, and then next thing you know, he's a fucking replicant or he's a plant monster, and there you go. Side adventure.
I'm going to bring this up as while we're talking about all the negative things. What about just the simple allergies? Yeah. You know what? I'm so-and-so, and I'm the great sniper. Well, that's great. Your eyes are watering, you're sneezing, you can't hide, you get minus to stealth. You're like, what? It's yeah, it just causes negatives. It doesn't hurt you per se, but it really increases your difficulty level.
I actually played that once in a game of Pathfinder. There was an enemy, a bad guy druid. And one of his things was he was able to produce spores and pollen or whatever in a large area around him.
Yeah.
And like everybody who I made their fortitude saves like super hard to succeed. So everybody's eyes started watering and their noses started draining, and it was like it was just a slight modification on their abilities, but it was still a slight like irritant that they didn't have any natural immunities to. So it was pretty interesting.
I'm going to bring up something because I don't know. Looking at the newer 2300 Traveler, they actually have it depending on your where you are. Is you have to make an endurance check, and if you don't pass correctly, you start getting negatives because of it. And admittedly, it doesn't say specifically what it is, but that's the idea that everywhere has its own unique flora and fauna. And I can say this much: anyone that's ever done any traveling, boy, when you go to a new place in the world, all of a sudden you get different diseases, and you're just like sick a while until your body acclimates to the surroundings, just because everything, just the microbial aspects are different, along with the flora and fauna. That's why a lot of people would move out to Arizona to get away from all of the allergens. And then what do? They bring the allergens with them, and now it's all over again. but that was one reason they would tell people to go up into the mountains and things, was to get away from a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, you can have like that just general miasma of some way, like your perception checks are lower, or your sensory checks are a little modified because your eyes are watering, you're sneezing. You can't stealth because you're sneezing.
There could even be other new things, like new symptoms that aren't the usual, hives or rashes or things like poison ivy and things like that. Imagine having poison ivy, from just walking around, from like little particles hitting you instead of you walking around the grass, but it's in the air, and suddenly your whole body is just ravaged with itches, and that they've got to sedate you because it's just so bad. But maybe after you pass through it and shed it and gone through it, maybe you get some sort of kind of cool benefit. Maybe your skin's tougher, or maybe it did some weird thing to you as a benefit afterwards. So people are now wanting this weird to go through this weird process to get that bonus. Well, you got to go through a week of itching and scratching like crazy, but you'll get +1 +1 on all your rolls to hit, or some weird thing. Just suddenly what you perceive originally as a bad thing actually turns into a good thing, because now your body is stronger from having gone through it, or your one of your mental abilities is stronger, or even going to places where the plants or the fungi or whatever are affecting you mentally, hallucinations, or temporary psionic abilities, or enhanced psionic abilities, or other strange.
Here's your fun one, and I know it's all been done by Avatar, but that's just because James Cameron comes up with nothing original. But the whole thing is
True,
because everyone's familiar with it. But all of a sudden, you start hearing things and you start seeing things around the world that are hidden to anyone else. And while we're talking about sci-fi,
Ooh, that's a good one.
When you're starting to do that, it's like, there's a reason when people talk about why do people see the same stuff if they're on the same drug in certain cases, for medicinal. It's like,
right.
Well, I think there's a pretty good explanation for that, but I don't think that's on topic.
Coming from that 15-year-old kid. Hey, listen, Shadow. You better not be experiencing that shit.
Well, it comes out of the basement, so I have no choice, really.
Oh, I got you. Hey, no judgment.
No, those are synthetics. That's your problem.
I mean, true.
No, but and you can go as crazy as was it Prometheus, like where the alien, they stepped on the little pus pods and
alien
in your ear and you're turned into a monster.
Well, I don't like the problem that I have with too often is that we're all trying to make it as instantly deadly, but boy, I just like the fact that if anyone's ever tried going through what is it? Chicoya cactus and skeet and black locust, and you're like, what the hell? It's like, well, yeah, you got a flat tire because these 3 or 4 inch long spikes just went through your tire. I mean, those are real things. And then if you try chasing something through there, you're like,
well, you know,
through this.
I was just thinking, like tonight, me and Mel, we went and got something to eat, and the cicadas are all out, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you've got some like seasonal sicular like insect that produces like maybe a sound that's like that interferes with like electronic communications or some shit. Or, you know, it's so loud that, you know, you can't go outside. You have to have some sort of protection because it happens. It's so loud, you know, shit like that. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, and I think this is the more that you go out there, the better. You know, we all talk about being on the internet. Everybody, go out and take a walk at least an hour a day.
Hey,
get healthy.
You know, that's one of the models of the channel. Go out and get some sunshine, some fresh air.
Touch grass.
And you know, and get some inspiration for your next game. But Brian, that was a great segue into talking about the actual fauna of alien worlds. You know,
there's one thing that you got to keep in mind. There are plans for these things. Body plans I was talking about, number of limbs, number of eyes. If you look at every creature on Earth, every vertebrate creature on Earth at the very least, there are a couple of things you notice. They all have 2 eyes, and in between that there are a couple examples, like a lizard that when it's born, it has a 3rd eye on top that gets covered by scales. It's weird, but almost every single mammal or lizard or bird has 2 eyes. In between that is a nose. Beneath that is a mouth, and then ears or hearing things, usually somewhere along that. You see,
I'm going to say this much. When people forget this, evolution is a combination of luck. That's the one thing that people hate. It's a combination of luck and just it happens to be. So, you know, there could have been hexapods, and the hexapod just happened to get wiped out by a meteor because it was on the wrong side of the planet. Not that one was superior to the other. So be careful on that aspect. Yeah, it's going to be convergent, but you know, why don't we have 4 eyes? Well, it depends.
But again, I mean, that's Earthling characteristics.
Yeah, that's all. That's all Earth.
So it's like if you're coming from a system that's completely alien, you can have all sorts of crazy shit.
Well, and that's what
but if you look at every creature on Earth, it's not, or maybe not every, but it's not just like, I mean, I suppose it is evolution, but even if you look at, for example, bears and dogs, very, very similar creature. I always say that bears are just boxier dogs.
The same family, bears and dogs?
Yeah. I mean,
but even cat, even friggin', if you look at a dog and a monkey, you can see the same traits as a human.
But again, what I'm trying to say here is be careful in trying to use that as the basis, because a lot of evolution is luck. You know, just whatever survived. If it was on the, you know, wherever the planet killer was, if it hit the wrong side of the planet, even if it was a superior body form, that body form disappeared, and then everything else took over. That's what I'm trying to say. Is why do we still have dinosaurs?
You still have. You as the writer or the creator of this world still have complete control over what ends up happening. So if you were like, maybe technically this creature isn't the absolute best thing because it's not that efficient, it's too big, it's too that, not enough food or whatever, you can just hand wave that away. It's not like the people playing or reading are going to be like, well, there's this really cool monster, this really cool alien animal on this planet, but how does it get enough food to live? It's too big. And nobody's going to... nobody's going to care. And
no one's going to say this megalodon doesn't have the food to be alive. So why are we fighting it? No one's saying that shit. Yeah, they're not going to say how is it maintained in its environment?
Hey, wait a minute. To be fair, if we're talking about this, let's not forget about Dune and how he went through a lot of the ecology, which some of it is it's a good fun mental process because it will actually start branching out. Is when you start looking at plants start co-evolving with things like bees and flowers. You know, so you get the co-evolution. So now you might be having these plants that are now defended by certain things in there. and then it goes from that. And so you're starting to get that aspect, and it helps. But come on, we all love sandworms. It doesn't matter whether we agree if they exist or
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
And some people really want to be a sandworm, so they keep snorting that fine dust there.
I'm telling you, they just like the cinnamon. They just mix it in with their rolls, add some sugar, and then they sell it as Cinnabon. And then instead it's called Spiceabon. That's what it is there. And then they start dreaming, of the future. So
did you guys see the new trailer?
I did.
I have not.
Not impressed.
I saw someone talking about
the
it.
original trailer.
I'll say this much though, is between the two films, the newer one is much more true to the book.
Yeah. I don't know. I love the 80s one. I mean, I know but I think
My favorite part were the shields.
No. Don't get me wrong. I still love the 80s version, the long version, the one that they released after the theatrical. I love that one. It was, but to be honest, if you're trying to look for like the real Dune for a movie, then the newer one does I like them both. They're just different, to be fair. Visually, I like it. I like the fact of how they have the armor out there. I think it's really cool. I like the fact they had the lasers and stuff that they didn't do. But to be fair, the other part is, come on, they're making 5 hours for Dune instead of just a 2-hour movie. So that allows me a lot more freedom.
That's true.
I
love David Lynch anyway, but that's being a little biased by it.
I don't think I've seen the new version yet.
It's worth seeing.
But even Arrakis had there's no examples of life on Arrakis, but humans and sandworms. That's you got to do more than that.
No. There were tons of other life. They specifically mentioned in the book. They're talking about Muad'Dib is the, it's the little mouse that goes around. They talk about a lot of different fauna in the book.
Oh yeah, the little mouse. I remember that.
Yeah, it's everyone just remembers the sandworms because no one really cares about mice and the stuff they were planting out there, like sage and a few other things that the guild was specifically hiding, so they didn't know how many freemen were out there.
The new movie, I don't think they casted it very good. I mean,
I think they did a great job for all the Atreides people. I'm not a huge fan of Zendaya.
I don't know. I'm comparing it with the 80s one. I mean, it wasn't a bad movie. It was an entertaining movie and an exciting, sci-fi movie.
Well, Duncan, Idaho was much better in this one than they actually allowed it, with actually fleshed him out.
Into him. I mean, and Idaho is a huge fucking character in the book because he just lives like forever because he's cloned or whatever over and over and over. He retains the knowledge from his previous life or whatever.
The other part is, and this is always fun, is while we're talking about alien fauna, you also have to look at what happens when fauna disappears and something takes its place. So you can go over and say, oh yeah, visitors visited this planet 100 or 1,000 years ago, and all of a sudden you find out they're giant weird animals and everything else, and they're all just evolutionary branches of of Earth creatures. So, sorry about that.
Are you choking on something?
I kind of personally dislike when they don't use a little bit more imagination than just mutating Earth creatures just a little bit. Oh, well, the zebras on this planet are purple and black, not black and white. No, do better. Do better.
Yeah,
it's not hard.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you look at this, snap? If you're lazy, just go back and look at the prehistoric animals that were not dinosaurs, and just see all the different body plans. It doesn't necessarily have to be, we talk about all these things, and I think that this is one of the things that I really like about Starfish here. A lot of their stuff was actually pretty cool for thinking about when they were coming up with monsters. Like, oh, how does this one work? Not everything has to be identical, but you have similar body plans.
You got to think. Yeah. Every creature that's existed that wasn't from a meteor hitting the planet or whatever, all failed designs because they became extinct, right? So I mean, other than like some mass extinction of that happened like overnight kind of thing.
Yeah.
These creatures failed in their design over however long. So it's like,
Failure.
you can make all these creatures that are so like that shit doesn't make any sense. How is that thing surviving? Well, it probably won't. But the thing is, in that small time frame, in that small scope that you're interacting with it, it does exist. So,
Hey, Brian, stop picking on the pandas.
yeah, it's like
Why do pandas still exist? Why are we literally making educational videos on how to get pandas to breed? Just let them die. It's not worth it anymore.
that
Well,
every
wait.
panda on the planet is owned by China, except one. I think there's one that's owned in like Brazil or something that isn't Chinese owned. And every panda on the planet is leased out by the Chinese.
Fair enough.
Well. Here's the other part: is
That explains it entirely. I always forget that part.
But the other part is pandas do not ingest bamboo. They do eat some other things. Just bamboo's the majority of their. But that's the other part too. Is we're talking about. It's not that they're failed designs. The animals become optimized for their surroundings. So if you're going to create any fauna, think of your flora, think of your fauna, and have them co-evolve. Think of the environment, and really what happens is we talk about failed designs. No, they were great for their design. The problem is if the environment suddenly changes, they're too hyper specialized and they disappear. And that's the big thing that comes into it is, and that's why I say evolution is not a forward thinking. People want to make it as evolution's forward thinking. No, evolution means that it adapts to the current environment, and whatever's best for the current environment is what outcompetes everything else. If that environment changes, then they go along with it. So in
gaming
Well,
terms,
look at the shark. The shark has been around and unchanged because it doesn't need to change. You know what I mean? It might not change for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands more years because it doesn't.
Well, I
need
mean,
to change.
hammerhead sharks do exist, and that shouldn't be.
That's
Why?
pretty weird.
Why?
they're weird. They're just fucking weird.
Just because something's weird doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. That's
I know. I didn't say it shouldn't. It doesn't have,
I said it
it doesn't have a right. I'm not oppressing the hammerhead rights to live.
Jackie's the geneticist here.
I am. I am
You're-
the rights to exist.
Oh my God, your alt anti-hammerhead movement starts here. I'm so triggered. I'm triggered. The poor hammerheads.
Well. See here's what I come down to.
Already.
It's unlike danger hares. Sharks can actually eat me, and they will do so without a second thought. So I'm trying to stay on their good side.
Tires, license plate.
If someone's crying because they make the wrong pronoun, you're not too worried about them. If another one's going to get,
They're not going to
like
evolve. They're
hundreds
sort
of,
of self-deleting as we speak.
well, if several hundred of them swim around and looking for anything that moves, maybe I'll just be like, I'm going to try to stay on their good side.
It's not in the water. That's how I interact with sharks. So like in gaming terms, guys. So like in my past, when I was designing stuff for some of my wargaming stuff, I used to have I think it was the old Rogue Trader Warhammer 40K.
Yeah.
And they had, I think it was the Books of Chaos. But anyway, they had like these pages, like 100 different entries of mutations, okay? That you can mutate your characters or whatever with. So what I would do is I would just roll like a D10, and whatever that is I would roll that many times to create something. It'd be, and I would look on that chart and like, okay, it's got oversized ears. So, okay, first of all, this creature is going to have like good hearing. Okay. And then I'd roll it again and it says it has a third limb coming out of its back. So, okay, it's multiple limbs. And that's kind of like a quick way that I would create shit. I would just roll on that chart and I would like develop, a creature just out of these traits that I roll up. So that might be, so if you guys have access to some sort of like, demonic, characteristics or, mutation.
Gamma World, all the mutation lists.
Do they have all that stuff? Okay.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of, he pulls it out. Of course, he's got it right there.
No.
Even the old DMG had things like that. The original Dungeon Master's Guide had ways to randomly roll out shit. Oh, Conan.
Real quick, Conan. Modifius right now is having a massive sale on all of their Conan stuff because they're about
too
to
late
lose
now.
the IP.
No, they can't sell it after July 1st or later. So it's all.
Oh,
it's over.
really?
Yeah, it's over.
Shit.
Yeah.
No,
Sorry, guys.
Anyway,
Forget what I said.
but no, the whole. Well, Brian, if you
Yeah,
need to-
wait, hold on real quick. To answer RPG Grandma's question, yes, I am very aware of the weirder sharks than hammerheads, and there's a reason they're all gone.
well, you know what? The reason they're all gone is because a meteor hit. But look at megalodons. Megalodons, well, and then sometimes, and this is what Jack had mentioned earlier about
Hey, Cal, long time no see, buddy.
the having the same things come back. Which one of them is the body plan for crocodiles and alligators? It's not just unique. It keeps coming back over and over. I mean, there used to be like land, crocodiles basically, but it's also interesting that you had the very equivalent of the for the amphibians as well. There's a certain point where it's like, hey, if the plan works, even if all the monsters die from that time, or the animals die from that time, they still kind of find that this is a really good pattern. We'll just stick with it, and so they'll come back, even though it may be slightly different.
And right now we have access to these different AI drawing programs and things like that. If you put in the right words, you could have you could cut your work down by half, if not more so, and have the artwork. You create the image and then start describing it. What it can do, what its benefits and deficiencies might be, just from a single image. If you're the kind of GM that really doesn't want to do much of this work, well, there's tools out there that will help you speed up the process, so you can make it look like you put some work into it. You know what I mean? There would be.
I'm going to mention one thing. Don't put in Triceratops, because I keep getting rhinoceros with 3 horns. No, I kid you not. I'm like, what the hell? I put a Triceratops.
I don't know, guys. I have to be honest with you.
And it comes like
mine would all turn out with like giant big boobs. So I got to stay away from the AI.
Well, hey, Brian, if you stop putting in the word boobs, it will stop showing them off.
You just have to put the word boob in as much conversation as possible. It just
maybe it's how you spell it. If you use the EW version, maybe you get better luck. I don't know.
This is but there are a lot of geeks out there with the random templates. Don't be afraid of stealing other monsters. That's the other part. Yeah, exactly. Tree with exploding fruit. And not everything has to necessarily do damage. Just here's your favorite is, and because I mentioned this with Shadow, since he always has his sniper with them, is if the tree explodes the fruit, but then all of a sudden you get all of the gel and stuff. Now you have to clean up your scope and all the other crap. Oh man, it's like, well, it works this one time, but now it doesn't feed properly. So your bolt action rifle now has to be cleaned, or your automatic rifle becomes a bolt action single shot every time. It's like, there are little things you can do in these things that are just not everything. We always talk about danger, what's dangerous, but man, sometimes players just
delicious. Think about that for a second. You go to an alien world and there's all these new critters to fry up. That alone. I'm hungry.
It's like,
what if you're frying up somebody's pet?
Well, that was I was just about to say. It's like, you know what? Maybe these are actually sentient creatures you're frying up, and then there's
was that
culture that comes after you for it.
With the poplars? The poplars? Like, these are so delicious.
Oh my god, I bet those were delicious.
Oh,
that would throw so much realism and interest into Cosmic Iron Chef, right? Between the flora and the fauna, you could make a BLT like no one's ever seen before.
Well, I'm going to mention something because again, talking about the insects with the eggs. How would you like it if you were talking about Traveler and someone says, "Hey, I want you to go over and you have to get these certain eggs," and all of a sudden you realize, like you're talking about, they're sentient, and now they're coming after you because you stole their children.
Right. It fried them up in a gigantic omelet.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but these are delicious and they're hallucinogenic and
Look, classic, Brian.
Mel's like talking about roaches and shit, and I'm like, blah.
No, I mean seriously, we're talking about an alien coming here thinking that.
So she's talking about like she sees like an alien coming to the earth, right? And goes, wow, look at this giant big creature. Ow. Tasty.
Well, hey, you know what? Years ago, I heard that they found these like big beetles. I guess they're like Hercules beetles or something like that. And the scientists were starving, and so they fried them up because that was the only thing available. And they're like, well, what was it taste like? They said, well, it kind of tasted like lobster.
Chicken.
So, but that's the other part. It's like you feel guilty. It's like,
Man, listen. The only reason I hate this roach is the only thing that grosses me out because of fucking Creepshow. When I was a kid, I watched Creepshow, and Romero scarred me for life about roaches. Anything else, I'm not scared. Ugh, roaches are so nasty.
Well, you know what? That was, and I didn't have this when I was in Cambodia, but they do talk about getting the fried tarantulas. And you look at them, and we were supposed to eat some. We didn't. But we bypassed on it. But we all think about these things. It's like, well, what are you going to eat? Like, well, we got these tarantulas. Are they, well, and technically tarantulas are poisonous and venomous. But but when you what they do is they fry the outside and they burn it off, and then they wash them. They cut off the little things, and you fry them up, and that's even the guys down in South America. They're like, oh yeah, the only thing we're really worried about is those stupid little hairs on them. That's
so how prevalent is running into flora and fauna in your gaming? I mean, seriously. I mean,
I honestly think that that's the problem. That it's why it's so overlooked is because people don't want to do the work.
They just don't.
It seems like work. Well, that's if you're going to take on the mantle of GM, DM, referee, or whatever, that's kind of implied. You got to do some work. You got to do some paperwork. If you don't want to, there are plenty of games where they're looking for players. But if you're going to take on that mantle and that responsibility,
well, because
there's a lot of fun you can have. But
I think the primary reason is yes, is partly that, but it's because when people play a sci-fi game, because sci-fi is
I don't know why I did that. Go ahead.
You got a clone.
Oh no,
they're taking over.
No,
now.
But when people play a sci-fi game, there's a bunch of different things that could be. I mean, if it is even a situation where they're going to be on a planet where there will be fauna and flora to encounter, then yeah, there's probably going to be a lot there. But when people play sci-fi, there's a good chance that they're not even really going to be in a place where they would be able to encounter that kind of thing, which already it cuts almost in half the amount of times you'll see it. And then once you are in a situation where you probably should be seeing it, then the laziness factor comes in, which explains why it's so rare.
I'm going to bring up something because, while we're talking about flora and fauna, what it really comes down to, and this makes a big difference, is to put a lot of random tables with just visuals. If you just put the visuals, I don't know if any of you have done this, but when you walk along, what's the difference between a fire ant mound and a red harvester, mound? You're just walking along and like, you see this going along. You don't have to really make it up front, but just by having those little things, I think that Dungeon Master Guy used to have it like all of a sudden you see a rabbit run by and then a fox run after it. Players suddenly start keying into things thinking, oh, this has to be part of an adventure, instead of going, no, we're just randomly throwing stuff that's kind of weird into the game so the players can see everything.
Or you can actually make the flora and fauna your game. Your mission is to secure so many of these, animals.
Samples?
Or not even samples. Like your job is to get 100 herd of this creature, capture them. You can't kill them. You got to capture them. You got to bring them back to your client because he wants to breed them because they're only in this place and they're hard to find or whatever. And he wants to breed them or whatever. So, so you could actually make the whole game about these creatures.
right,
And then,
Traveler had the hunter kind of like a big game hunter, as not like a character class, but types of characters that would become that over the course of their life. Now they landed this gig where that's what they're doing, is they're maybe hunting these big scary creatures to mount on their somewhere on their bulkhead, or bring samples to other people, to scientists or what have you, or literally herding them off to other planets to help populate a planet with similar creatures, so that the planet now has farmable and ranchable things. It would make for depending on the players, quite possibly a pretty cool adventure, going, landing job to job with your safari ship, I think they used to call them, and catching these things and finding unique ways to catch them without hurting them, instead of just putting a hole in them and throwing their carcass in the cargo hold.
That would bring up rules mechanics that a lot of people don't play, is non-lethal rules, grapples, that kind of net.
Tranquilizer darts,
Yeah,
stasis field, luring the creatures into the ship, all kinds of different things, learning to ride these creatures, I'm a big, Old West guy, and I can already imagine all kinds of different ways to throw Western elements of ranching and herding and, the cattlemen and all those tropes.
Well, yeah, but that's because sci-fi and westerns are extremely they go together very well.
Yeah. But I'm going to mention this much. It's not that hard to catch aliens. You just put down some Reese's Pieces down in a nice little thing, and they'll come. It doesn't matter how smart they are, or if they, if they have an intelligence of 18 or whatever, they'll still come and follow it.
To be pro.
Come on. It worked with ET. If he can phone home with like with the stuff that he did Interstellar, you can catch them all there. But no, well, that's the other thing. Is like, what is your lasso skill? That's the other thing. It's like, I didn't take a lasso skill. Well, this is gonna be a lot harder than you think it is.
Right.
This is but
What's up?
No, Holman keeps popping in and out.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what's going on. But here's the other part: is when you get animals, and we talk about tribbles. What happens when all of a sudden you drop them off on a planet and they go berserk,
Crazy.
like the rats and the rabbits did in Australia, and then you get the cane toads, and all of a sudden it's like, nothing can kill them. Yes, it's that's what it comes down to. That's one of the things I think about.
Right,
you're talking about original Star Trek. Remember that one where they go to that planet?
He's never seen it. But yeah, if you bring a new species to a new place, even humans, you're going to come up with unexpected results, or maybe expected results that can also lead to more adventure, or at least story ideas for the campaign. There's so much that you can go on. It doesn't always have to be the usual buying and selling of inanimate objects type of thing. There's some things where you could actually hone your other skills as player characters and as players, thinking up new ways to deal with these situations. You don't have to just leave it up all to the suits and the scientists. Come up with old ways, new ways to use old ways. How our settlers, not just in the United States but elsewhere, how they learn to tame the land, so to speak. You're taming a whole brand new world. I often imagine, in the future where we have a new land grab, where we found multiple planets that are empty of intelligent life, but they've got plenty of other life, and the Empire wants people to go out there and colonize them and figure it out, and then come back later 100 years and start taxing the hell out of them. It could make for a very interesting campaign, almost along the lines of what Star Trek was supposed to be. It was supposed to be like a wagon train in space, or even Galactica, where you've got the sci-fi, but you mixed it in with the survival skills and potential adventure, especially when they do bump into the planet's one actual intelligent life forms, unknown to the survey teams, and now they're dealing with people who don't necessarily want to give up their land to these colonists, and all the different ways you can sort of play out the the different motifs and ideas that would go along with that. Are you going to make peace? Are you just going to exterminate them? Is it going to be a bug hunt, bring in the Marines and just, wipe them out? Okay, this planet's ours, plant the flag, on to the next planet in the system. Or are you going to have, potentially interesting interactions with these aliens, and where the players could, actually make names for themselves?
I'm going to bring something else out because we're talking about these things, but if anyone remembers in the 70s how they all screamed about kudzu and how kudzu was going to overgrow and take care of everything, could you imagine if anyone looks at how we will grow at times? No, it's not a biological plague.
Well, now it's
anyway,
that
That's globalist.
the Saragossa stuff coming to the west on the coast of Florida. Everybody's freaking out about that algae shit.
Well, but I'm talking about whenever anyone that's seen like kudzu starts growing, or bamboo where it grows like a foot a day, all of a sudden you're starting to do your base, and all of a sudden this bamboo's erupting underneath it, and then you get the little your little space mice that start chewing on your electrical system. Not everything has to necessarily be I won't say a direct contact. Well, not everything has to be like, well, I'm good with my gun. I'm like, great, you shot one rat. And like
a swarm. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like,
kill one.
They hurt you, but darn it, they're destroying my electrical system. Anyone that's had to deal with rats in your car and crap like that, where they chew on the wiring and stuff, and what do we do? Well, you got to find the special fungus to kill them off. And let's
open the door and they all get sucked out.
Well,
like, see ya.
Wait. Let's talk about other animals.
Oh shit, Steve.
Zebra mussels. How they all talk about zebra mussels blocking off intakes. So all of a sudden your water comes in, but the zebra mussels are in there, and you're like, what am I going to do about these stupid things? And if you really want to get into there, the public game is, the emu still. Total of 4 people. I think 4 people were involved in the Australian War versus emus. But
I swear to God, everybody talks about that. I hear that everywhere. The role players and the war gamers talk about playing it out like there's an actual fucking. Let's buy some emu figures, and then we're gonna have hunters, and then we're gonna fight.
Well, there were only like 4 of them. There were 4.
To be fair, technically the Australians. There's an argument to be made that there were actually 2 emu wars. The first one, the Australians lost, but the second one, where they used bounties to kill the emus instead of just putting like 3 guys up to the task, they won that one. Unlike the Chinese war against the sparrows, where the Chinese did win.
Kill them all, yeah.
And then they all starved to death.
Oh, well, see, and that's a good thing too, is when you start looking at it, this is the thing of why if you start reading about history, look at what happened with those, what happened in Easter Island. The real thing that happened with Easter Island, apparently, that they're starting to find out now, is rats came in, ate all of the seeds. So even though they were cutting down the trees could not grow back because they had no seeds to grow them with.
And then they had to start eating each other.
Well, that was the only thing left, is you're kind of trapped. If they hadn't brought the rats on, they would have been fine. It's some of these weird things that what's the unintended consequences all of a sudden of when they talk about the passenger pigeons. Apparently the passenger pigeons didn't swarm until we took out a lot of the other animals that would hunt them, and when that happened, all of a sudden they ballooned, and then I'm not really sure exactly how they died off from all of that, but certain animals seem to live and certain ones don't. And it's like, why did these make it, but these didn't? But there were never that many of them until the settlers came.
No, I don't know about the passenger pigeons.
Sorry, I was reading one thing that they were talking. There's a great book called 1491 and 1493 that talk about the Americas before and after. And some of it was when the human beings like 95% of the natives died from disease.
Damn
And so
whiteys.
well, I mean, 95% of them died. So, but a lot of the trees and things that were native to the Americas as well completely went out of control because human beings had either cut them down or they'd managed them with fire and everything else. So, well, yeah, for the squad, but there's more than just that RPG, Grandma, because as much people want to talk about it, the Indians ate them too. There just weren't as many as we used to have. They went berserk, and then everything went out there. But yeah, there's a lot of different things. Yeah, we go through it, but why did the passenger pigeons die off, but the rock doves didn't? That's a good question. And that's why whenever someone says, "Oh, I'm an environmentalist," I said, "Okay, so you have no problems with us killing the pigeons?" No, you can't kill the pigeons. You're not an environmentalist. So what you're really saying is that
the average environmentalist is just
What?
I said the average environmentalists are just socialists that really like watermelon.
And well, no.
Hell, you reading, dude?
Well, hold it. The average environmentalist hates what was it? Dihydrogen monoxide. Okay, they signed the form saying let's ban dihydrogen monoxide.
And what is that?
Think of it. Di is two
Water.
one water monoxide.
Okay, I'm like, all right. See, I mean, I get there, but
Yeah.
I might get there a little slower. Okay, but I do
Well,
get.
I mean, in 2004 alone, we had hundreds of thousands of people die from one incident with dihydrogen monoxide. It affected dozens of countries. So we should ban it entirely.
Do you support the banning of dihydrogen monoxide? Every year, several people die in dihydrogen monoxide. At least 100 people have died in this year from dihydrogen monoxide. It's a massive problem. We need to ban it.
Did you know more children under the age of 10 die from dihydrogen monoxide than guns? How can we allow dihydrogen monoxide?
How can we have that around?
Yeah, exactly.
They're gonna start putting labels on water.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Well, they do.
It's even in our water fountains. It's everywhere. It's even in our swimming pools.
It's like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's also the plants that are native go berserk too because you removed whatever was keeping them down. Yeah. So, but those are fun things to think about if you're going to be in there. Or what's even better is the players come in, they don't realize they drop off a few seeds or whatever, and then like 5 years later they suddenly find this plant that's green and lush where it used to have nothing, and like, what the hell happened?
I was just about to say, okay, we're in a sci-fi setting here, right?
Yeah.
And you are the captain of a seeding ship. What flora and fauna do you dump on a planet? Let's say the planet's like Earth-like, okay? Which animals and what planets do you send to it? Think about that stuff.
Well, first thing you do is you get some Bermuda grass, you get some bees, you get, what are some things out? You get anything that doesn't have thorns. I just hate everything that has thorns.
Goat heads. Freaking hate them. Oh my God.
Which ones?
Goat heads. They've cost me dozens of dollars in replacing inner tubes on our bikes over the last 12 years. These tiny little thorns, I guess they come off the tumbleweeds or something, and they're just rock hard, spiky needle things. They're only about this freaking big, but they're just apparently, attracted to black tires.
Oh, speaking of which, wouldn't that be kind of cool? Not that I want this in the world, but wouldn't that be kind of cool to have tumbleweed sentient plants that they pick up and then they just roll around?
Jackie and I actually had a story about that, didn't we, bud?
Nope, we didn't.
Oh, okay.
You're just hallucinating the drugs again.
You don't remember when we were walking through the desert, huh?
I was just thinking, the tumbleweeds, which are actually Russian
Attack of the killer tumbleweeds.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that they have to be killer, but they can just, all of a sudden you come around and.
Oh, but they would be more fun if they were. Think about it. They just stick in you and just start sucking your blood out?
You know,
Well, see, everyone wants to, the monsters. A lot of times, I just like throwing stuff out there to make players have to, so they hate certain. I want challenges for it. So all of a sudden, well, we're gonna put this electric fence to keep out the giant dinosaurs or whatever, and then all of a sudden the tumbleweeds all collect on it, and then they catch on fire, and it blows it out, and then the monsters come in. There's other things that come in there.
This tumbleweed thing reminds me of a movie.
How you doing? Father Aaron's in the house.
There's a movie called Rubber, and it's a horror movie about a tire that becomes sentient, and he's like it's like a serial killer. It's like a psychopath.
Yeah.
You have a
little part of Christine escaped.
Just all of a sudden this tire just becomes whatever and it starts killing people. I wanted to like it because I like crap like that. It is shit. So don't even watch. But it's just weird that it just reminded me of and it rolls around and it looks for victims. It's just stupid.
Well, you know what though is you can do some weird things, but that's why I was mentioning tumbleweeds. Is they just seem perfect to like wander around, and all of a sudden, you wake up one day and all of a sudden you see this whole village that's just built out of there. You're like, what the hell happened? Well, we rolled in yesterday and we decided to set up camp. Wait a minute.
Especially if you've ever seen those videos where people get stuck in a dust storm full of tumbleweeds, and you can even, give them more solid bodies, so to speak, make them a little tougher, a little thicker, and make them carnivorous and, to disguise their appearance so they don't look completely like tumbleweeds, but, throw that in there. I did want to spend a bit of the last part of the show talking about the big nasties. We could come up with new hostiles on these alien planets, besides the stereotypical bugs and lizards, because it's always
Well,
some
bugs
sort
are
of bug
cool.
or
Like I get that they're overused, but the thing is, most people just like, all right, so it's a big spider, but with like a butterfly head or a dragonfly head, and that's it.
But it's like, monsters are taken from the things that creep us out or scare us, the stereotype, or the pieces of creatures that freak us out. Like bugs are gross. A lot of people think they're gross. Then you make them bigger.
Bugs are epic.
Even grosser. And then like lizards. Lizards are creepy, or spiders are gross.
frogs,
And
snake,
and that's why
all the
our
reptiles.
monsters reflect those characteristics, because in the
I
societies that we live in.
I want to see a story where something like the penguins, or something that we would never be afraid of, but now they're what?
There's a movie called Black Sheep. It's a New Zealand movie. All of a sudden, the goats and the sheep in this farm become carnivorous, and they start eating. That's a good one.
Well, let's look at this one. We were talking about carnivorous, but what's the most dangerous animal in Africa besides the mosquito?
Man,
The hippopotamus.
that's what. Yeah, Mel just said hippo. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know how I didn't mention this, but yeah, people think like, oh, you have the herbivores and they're all nice and they don't do anything, but it's the mean carnivores and they're gonna go and they're gonna eat and bully you and it's gonna be really bad. Like, no, nah. You walk by like a hippo or something, you walk by a rhino, they're gonna attack you. I mean, to be fair, a rhino will attack a tree if it sees it, but still.
But I mean,
Hey James, welcome to the show, buddy.
But hippopotamus, especially if they're territorial, for that aspect, we look at a lot of things in there. Of course, you generally get your feline looking animals, and then they put we'll put them with scales or something like that. But
right, or bigger teeth, or tentacles coming off their shoulders.
Well, the other part that starts coming into it is, carnivorous worms are always a fun one, especially, and anything that's a swarm, any kind of swarm that eats everything over. Part of the reason that everyone uses insects and reptiles is because they want that fear aspect in it, and it's for a lot of people that's innate fear, and then so it immediately reacts to it. If you put Fluffy the dog that suddenly starts eating everyone, then it's a little bit different. It's a
a little goofy.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong,
think about that. You've got creatures that are so cute. You know, think of like everybody turns into a crazy cat lady when they're around it. So you
I
stop,
would kill myself.
stop eating your own rations and you start feeding this creature. That's how it survives. It makes you fall in love with it so much more than yourself. And you start feeding it and water it, and you slowly just wither
Or
out.
Arduin's
So
kill
just a
kittens.
cat.
Arduin's kill kittens are these kittens that you'll see in the middle of a road. It's this kitten with a hurt paw, and you're like, oh, and of course the lady druid in the party's got to come up and try and heal it, and then out of nowhere, like 1,000 more kittens with 6-inch claws come out, and they just tear apart the party, right, Grandma?
That's it.
I'm just thinking that all it takes is 300 to 400 chihuahuas that might be able to take out a rhino. You know what? You talk about gerbils, but it's not just gerbils. It's the what are they called? Mole rats. Those are like mean looking things that all of a sudden dig. And you want to talk about players if they have a base on there. All of a sudden they start. Or what's great is if there's a town, and also let's talk like Tremors, except you're using mole rats now, and they're starting to come out there and grab people from underground. You're like, holy crap!
There's an artist. He's a fantasy artist. He the mole rats have that weird mouth, right?
Yeah.
That weird like kind of hooked mouth thing. He did a bunch of art about these like creatures that look like that. They're big though. They're like big as like a horse or something. They're eating people and stuff. It's really like I can't. It's a really creepy looking creature.
I don't remember this one. In Creature from the Pit, Tom Baker fought guard carnivorous tumbleweeds with thorns on them, wolf weeds. Right. And the Dungeon Minister said birds. I can totally picture a planet where the main life form, are giant birds of various sorts, and maybe some of them are actually intelligent, and
Most birds
right
on Earth are pretty smart.
Right, I knew you were going to say that. And there you have something, like the Rock from fantasy. A giant bird that can just come in and literally pick up your shuttle and it thought it was an egg, and now it's going to crack it. Because it eats other creatures' eggs, and it's picking up your ship, and it's trying to crack it on a giant rock.
Yeah, I mean, birds are one of the, maybe not one of that. That's exaggerating, but they are very diverse. I mean, even if you look at like back in the day with terror birds and the sort, and parrots nowadays, which not only are just smart, they live way longer than you'd expect.
I mean, birds now. Well, shit, they'll outlive you.
Well, wait. Let's look at the pterosaurs. If anyone's watched the new thing on Apple Plus or whatever, the Apple TV where they have the where they started doing the pterosaurs, the ones that are 18 feet tall that were hunting on the ground. So they would fly, they would land, and now with their giant beak would start coming at you. And the beak's like 6 feet long, like a spear. You're like, holy crap.
You guys got to watch an excellent movie. It's fantastic. It's called the Giant Claw. You need to watch it. It's about a giant bird. It's fantastic.
Oh, I watched. I don't know if I watched a review or what of it. It was, from what I saw, there were Canadians in it.
Oh no, dude! It's a 1957 movie, so you might not like it.
So you know what? If it's Canadians. The only export worth from Canada is maple syrup and comedians. That's about it. So,
it's who?
Comedians and maple syrup.
No, Rush, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Rush.
Rush. What about Triumph?
I meant
they
Triumph
had balls.
Too, but Rush.
Everybody in Rush had their what's in their wives' purses. Okay, Triumph had.
Man, Rush though, dude. Nerdy guys, not flashy, but just brilliant.
Whiny, led by a whiny so-and-so, and all their lyrics written by another whiny. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Rush was my first concert.
Okay, listen. Triumph was good, but it ain't Rush, dude.
No, Triumph actually rocked as opposed to preached.
Preach? What? My soul is hurting.
I see like no scenario where preaching is bad.
You're right. Triumph actually did more preaching. Rush did more virtue signaling. They were woke before woke was a word, my friend. And I do like Rush, but I've recently listened to a bunch of Triumph, and they had just a lot more testosterone. I'm just gonna put it that way.
I don't know, man.
I know I just lost 50 subs. What?
Well,
You said something bad about Rush?
Dungeon Minister is going to be like, no, we have more exports than just maple syrup. No.
One of the best car scenes in history was a Blazing Magnums, and that was set in Montreal. It's a fantastic movie. Car chase, excellent.
You know, the other one, you know, we're talking about this, but you know, we're talking about all these animals as if it was normal. Let's not forget when you start including your environment. So when it's
Flora. Oh my
Oh
God!
shit!
shots
Guess
fired,
what?
dude.
Today is Canada Day, by the way, if you care.
Yes, that was in the chat.
Oh, did someone say it?
Yeah,
Well,
and Dungeon Minister is
okay.
from Wisconsin but lives in Canada. Dungeon Minister, you're always welcome here.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't gone out and subbed on every device in your house as Dungeon Minister, what are you doing with your life?
But I'm saying, you know, the other thing that we're talking, like I said, is when you start looking at the environment. What about, what was it, Alcatraz or whatever from Star Frontiers, where
Welcome.
but where they during the winter, and then all of a sudden your players are out where they both have to deal with the environment, and now they're being hunted by these monsters out in the cold. And while D&D does that, I don't think that's done enough in certain other ones in there.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying. Because one mistake, and you've got two enemies: the environment as well as the stalker or whatever that might be. Giant penguins, you know, or I don't know, zebras,
what
giraffe.
Speaking of which,
Killer giraffes.
has anyone ever looked
Those
at how big a
man, they
sea
get
lion?
around you. You ain't going anywhere.
Well, no. Did anyone see how big a sea lion is?
Dude, they're
They get-
massive.
They get up like 800
They're fucking
pounds.
massive, dude. Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
could you imagine that in a polar bear stalking you, and then make it semi-intelligent? You know, a little bit more than it is, so it stays out of the range and watches you, and you're like, you know, it's just waiting. And now you're on an ice sheet.
I've always wondered why some bastard hasn't brought a polar bear down to the South Pole. You know, just to be a bastard. Just to have a go at all the penguins down there. It's like
jeez.
open freaking dude. Polar bears would rock down there.
Well, once all the penguins are gone, so would they. You know.
That reminds me, Brian. I need to chat with you after the show.
Dude, anytime, brother.
Yeah.
Anytime.
No. Something came up. Something new.
Uh-oh. I didn't do it, bro.
No,
didn't
you're
know.
gonna. You're gonna.
Oh, gonna.
You're gonna
gonna.
want
Okay.
to. You're gonna
Okay.
want to.
Okay.
It's right up your alley.
Right on. Yeah, I'm surprised. Where's Bo? Is he doing a game right now or something?
I
Both
sent him the link and everything.
He's in
He's
Colorado right
Oh,
now.
that's right.
Oh, he's in
That's
Colorado.
right. No. Family.
Something
Oh.
came up. Something came
Oh.
up.
Yeah,
okay.
they're doing he's doing some family stuff that's going to include a really nice, cool, old timey train trip.
Oh, sweet.
That
I've
sounds
done-
freaking, like fun.
I've done a train like an old Western, like an 1800s train through how was it, like Lake City and Creed. And, yeah, it's beautiful.
Really? Yeah, I've only done Knott's Berry Farm, so hey, that's fun though. It's fun. The first time you don't know it's going to get robbed. You know, the 7th or 8th, you know it's going to get robbed.
It's like
But yeah.
I've
Wait,
only
wait,
been
wait,
on
wait,
the
wait.
Universal Studios ride, the earthquake ride.
Wait a minute. It took you 7 or 8 times to realize that you were going to be robbed. You just like were surprised each time before.
I was doing other things, just saying. It was a great ride for other activities.
Oh. Stop interfering with me. I'm busy.
That's awesome.
Eating penguins like popcorn. That's what would happen if you brought polar bears there.
Oh, does anyone remember
just
the old
scoop them up.
TSR game? Wait a minute. Does anyone remember the old TSR game where you could you'd have like the sheet and then you could put different weapons all over, and one of them was a penguin? It was a board game.
I missed that one.
Oh yeah, it was but it was I had it. But it actually had a giant penguin on it, and yeah, it was.
Speaking of Colonel's talking about the orcas, have you guys been reading those articles about those orcas attacking the fishermen? I'm like,
I've seen a couple.
I read that shit and I watched Orca again. I'm like,
Hey, well, I mean, we've talked about orcas, but has anyone seen what the mosasaurs from 60 million years ago with their giant jaws would do? I'm like, there's a lot of scary stuff that used to be in the ocean, and could you imagine?
Right. Imagine a water world landing. Like a crash landing. Your ship's got to go down. The planet's nothing but water.
It doesn't even have to be like water. All you have to be is on like an island like Hawaii, and then you're like, well, I want to get off the island of Hawaii. Well, how far to the mainland? 1,000 miles, and I get like a plesiosaur coming up and eating the players. Like
there's a great video game just like that, Shadow. What was it, Subnautica, baby? The one that Lola was playing?
Yeah. You missed that.
Yeah, I was just talking. Yeah, we were talking about that in the beginning.
Game.
It's an amazing game.
It is. It's fan. I mean, it is. And then when you get to those weird leviathans and stuff, oh damn, that's creepy.
Yeah, that was a fun game to watch him play.
Yeah, that was a good one. And that, talking about alien fauna and flora, that was a good game.
Well, I mean, not that they were the best, and please don't make us watch.
Oh my God, James is killing it tonight. You will live on the oil rig pirate radio station.
Pirate radio, baby. Hell yeah. Speaking of, me and Mel watched the movie Black Demon. It's about these guys stuck on like an oil rig and off the coast of Mexico. And the Black Demon is, I guess it's a Mexican like folk, monster that's it's basically like a giant megalodon, like, because they're fucking with the environment or whatever, and it's been released by one of the Incan like big guys. It's pretty interesting. It was a fun movie. It was pretty good.
Has anyone seen
I actually love Waterworld. I probably like
I love Waterworld, dude.
Okay. Yeah, it was a fun movie. I mean, it was slow, but for me it was a horror flick because nothing but water. No thanks, man. No thanks.
Well, has anyone?
I would crap so much I would make my own island.
Has anyone seen the Humboldt squids? I think it's the Humboldt squid.
Oh yeah, those giant I've seen those.
No, I mean they're like they're like the piranhas of the ocean.
Oh.
I think that I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I forgot but they actually talk about that fishermen are afraid of falling in the water during certain times of night in Mexico because they'll grab you and they'll just start taking off chunks of your body.
Damn.
Yeah. Like the people who swim with them wear body armor, with that chain link so they can't bite through it.
It's like, why the fuck would you swim with them? It's just like, oh, madness.
Really, Brian, really, really big water wings.
With guns on them and stuff.
Right.
Jeez.
But yeah, apparently I think that the Humboldt squid, but a lot of them will come over there and
well, when you think about like on our own planet, you got sperm whales. I mean, you got to think, for those things that just exist, those things have to eat a shit ton of big stuff. And there's enough stuff down there.
Or like the baleen whales where they just swoop up all the krill, tiny little
things. Though, but sperm whales don't do that shit. They hunt.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
they're like hunters. And they're eating big game down there. And it's just creepy to think that there's enough to keep those suckers alive.
Well, especially when they were bringing up the sperm whale back in the day, and they'd have these giant suction cup marks on them.
Yeah.
Where Cthulhu tried to, get them as a tacky s'more, but this.
Not today, Cthulhu.
Right. That's why he's so pissed off. He just wanted a couple of sperm whale, and now he's been stuck down there and he's freaking starving. Right, Venger?
Speaking of which, and it's I kind of like for ideas for things, but the Numenera stuff into the deep where you've got like the giant eye just looking at the players underwater. That's you're like, and then you start finding out they're sentient underwater because we always think about stuff above water, You know, but what are you going to do? Your lasers don't work underwater.
Nope.
Most of your guns don't work underwater. So, you know, we're also talking about, like, how do you fight off some of these things? Oh, guess what? You're in a whole completely different alien world now, and good luck. Oh, speaking
Well,
of
I
which,
think what you have to do is get swallowed up by it, and then you break out your lightsaber and just carve your way out.
Dude, I remember I was in a freaking lake swimming as a kid. I was just swimming underwater, and a damn bass like bumped into me, and it scared the dude. This hard thing just boink.
oh,
What was that?
well, have you seen how big? You know, we're talking about, you know, like alligators and stuff. How big alligator gar are?
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
those are massive.
Dude,
man.
I was at the Los Angeles Zoo when I was a kid. They had an 18-foot alligator or crocodile. I don't remember which.
Yeah.
Oh my God! It's like, yeah, no thank you. No.
We got alligators here in Texas, man, and I've seen one like on the side of the road, dude, just sitting in like a fucking thing of water by the swamp. Man, they're massive. They're fucking massive, and that's just like an American alligator. You're not talking about like saltwater crocs that'll eat your family in one bite.
So I mean, you know, he's talking about this, but I remember looking, and I could never get a good picture of it because it's hard to get scale unless someone's right next to it. I remember going over and like, oh, you know, it's no big deal. Like, oh, there's a little alligator about this big. I remember going and inspecting a dam, and it's like, oh yeah, I got a 10-footer. You know, the landowner's like, yeah, I got a 10-foot alligator out in the pond. He keeps the beavers down. And then speaking of another thing that, you know, it's not like looking at animals not necessarily as competition, which a lot of players want to do, but I like it when they just screw with you. Like you suddenly start waking up and all your culverts, so you find out that your camp's flooded, and you know that's what I like to do out there.
You walk out, you got this. Your party has you're building up this big grandiose entrance to this new world, and all of a sudden, an alien monkey throws a big old piece of shit on your face. And you're like,
the space species flinging
space monkey throwing it.
James, there are space whales. We just haven't found them yet.
Well, you know, that's the other part though. Speaking of which, alien fauna, this is where I like Farscape, is because it was a living spaceship.
Yeah. That's a big
Like,
kind of trope, is that living kind of, spaceship or living technology.
I love living technology for that whole thing. The pentapods in 2300, you start going through that and you start growing the plants and stuff.
The only problem I ever had with the living spaceships and stuff is that they were obviously not like born to be a spaceship, right? You think they would have like antibodies within them. And I always wonder, like in Farscape, let's say the Farscape creature, when it was originally like born or whatever. I haven't watched that in a long time. I can't remember all the details, but I mean, maybe they had to clear out the antibodies and the white blood cells, whatever kind of creatures act as that inside of it, and then they could further on.
Unless they were literally genetically engineered creatures like the Tyranid, some massively.
Well, no, Tyranids weren't genetically created. They're like spawned from their own thing. They're not like something.
Right. No. What I mean is though, in the old lore of the Tyranids could create new life forms.
Yeah.
Maybe some greater intelligence out there decided, you know what, let's take some DNA and spice some shit and do some weird stuff, and suddenly you've got a Tin Man from Star Trek, as a willing recipient of human pilots and what have you, for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to be way high up on the evolutionary scale to manipulate living things to that point, but I would just hand wave it in that direction. Ancients did it, and maybe their pets are still floating around in space, and now they're lonely for companionship, so they invite you on board, and now you go on adventures and do all kinds of silly shit like that. But for the most part, I kind of stay away from it. I prefer, if there are living critters that live out in space and don't need to breathe like we do and can, survive in the vacuum, then that's just asking to be some sort of monster or creature that's gonna, be an antagonist against the party, as opposed to, what they did with Farscape. That's just, It's too much of a gimme to the players. Like, here you go, you get your own pet spaceship.
Whole shit.
You know,
Yeah.
Well. How is that any different than giving the players their own starship, regardless? I mean, whether it's living or otherwise. But
you're right.
True.
There is no difference. And I'm a huge fan of the original Star-Lord, whose ship was intelligent and sort of kind of in love with Star-Lord or something. It was a really weird comic book. The original Star-Lord, way better than
The Guardians
anything
of the
Marvel.
Galaxy or Star Lord?
The original Star-Lord. They're supposed to be the same guy. They just changed it and made him way
I didn't
weaker.
like it, bro. I read that shit. I didn't like because it wasn't the lineup that they have in the movies. It was the blue dude and the girls.
Right, no, I'm talking way back in the old black and white Marvel.
Oh, and
the
the
black
Marvel premiere. Yeah.
Right, those Star-Lord. But it was just Star-Lord and his
Yeah.
ship going from planet to planet, getting into, shenanigans. It was more my thing. But
I think he's
yeah,
thinking of Star Jammer. Was it Star
Spelljammer-
Jammer?
Starjammers was actually the captain of the Starjammers was actually Cyclops and Havoc's dad,
Yeah.
who got abducted or something into space, and he
Yeah.
said, "Sorry, boys,
Very
I'm gonna go
good,
get them."
dude. I'm impressed, Shadow. I'm impressed, brother. I was a huge comic fan, dude. I didn't know anybody would know that.
Oh yeah, I got them all.
Right
I got
on.
them all. Oh yeah,
Very
yeah,
cool.
but yeah. I was saying, he left his kids. Oh, sorry, you're gonna grow up in an orphanage. I'm gonna go out in space. How messed up was that shit? I'd be like, okay, I got a spaceship. I gotta go find my boys. Now I'll wait till they're grown up. Then I'll bump into them. Yeah, my name's Corsair now. I'm hanging
That's
out with
right,
these
Corsair.
aliens. I was like, what the fuck? Talking about the ultimate deadbeat dad.
wait a minute. You just have to realize just how bad was his wife at home. At the end of the day.
I'm trying to think. I don't think they.
Fair
I don't.
enough, dude. Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't
No,
know.
I
I don't think they ever talked
one day,
about.
he went out
the
to get some
mom.
cigarettes and some beer, and he just never returned
Yes,
home.
yes, I was, John. How's it going, buddy?
No, there was the but we're talking about all this alien fauna, but energy beings.
I mentioned Havoc.
What's that?
Oh, someone said, what about Havoc? I mentioned him. Cyclops
No,
and
his
Havoc, they're
mom.
brothers.
Mom. Yeah, I know they're brother, but I don't think I don't know who
the
their
hell
mother
mom was.
is. Yeah, I don't think.
No idea. I kind of remember she went with him, and she had some other weird superhero name, but who knows?
Well,
High Evolutionary had something involved with them. I don't know, whatever.
Well, I think the other thing is, to make them more interesting, part of it is give your animals or your fauna or whatever else kind of motivations and personalities is one part, which is we know how dogs act, we know how horses act. Well, people don't really know how horses act a lot of times, but when you start putting in there, which is dogs tend to work well with being treated well. Some animals react by fear, some work by love, some work by food. And you start putting those motivations in there, and then start seeing if they're curious. Like apparently, by my understanding, a lot of like for sharks, even if they're not interested in eating you, their way of trying to understand things is to taste you. So it's not necessarily that they're, hey, I want to kill you. It's just like, it's just like, hey, let me do this. So there's that.
Well, they don't have hands.
Well, that's the problem. So but those are things I'm referring to. Is if you start giving your animals motivations, like raccoons like to do certain things, and they have the little hands that like to do everything, and then
Don't get me started on raccoons, man. Our friend Raven, I don't know if she's still in the thing. She's got raccoons like going into her house. If she's not, if she's like, I know, right?
I had a friend who had a
place on
fucking
fire
pet
called
raccoon,
Love.
dude. He had a pet. He trained it. It did stuff. Did you have something like that too, baby? Raccoons or some shit? No. Oh.
I'd literally light the place on fire, call the insurance company, and just write it off. Those freaking things are nasty and disease-ridden little trash pandas. Yeah, I said it, trash pandas.
And don't forget about skunks. Things that are similar to skunks where they'll spray you. And
I had a dog that got sprayed by a skunk. We just
Only-
shaved his ass.
Oh,
I
well,
couldn't get it off him.
It's horrible
got a
for a
new
lot of
dog.
this stuff.
I'm
Well,
getting you done. Sorry, this one's
I was
gone.
working with my coworker because I was looking up one of the metal pipes, and I was looking in there, and there's a little skunk that was asleep. It was all wrapped in, and I said, "Hey, man, I dare you to go bang on that pipe." And all I could think was, what if he had actually done it, and then he sprayed the guy, and then I would have had to put him in the car so I could take him back to the office. Like, I'm just punishing two people here, not just one. So, yeah, it's but how would the players react when all of a sudden one of them gets sprayed? It's like, no, you just have to stay outside. Well, but I need to come to the ship. Nope, you're staying in the airlock. We're fumigating.
Yeah, that's when you pull the whole like, oh, you may be contaminated, and you got to go through your decontamination process for the next year. You're stuck in the airlock.
Well, all of a sudden the players have to go find the equivalent of tomatoes to get them off. It's like, hold on, here's your tomato bath, and yeah.
And all your food's going to be in toothpaste form, so we can just drill a single solitary hole and squeeze
like,
it.
There you go, man. Have fun.
Yeah.
And it's 0G too. He's like swimming, trying to.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, well, come on. Then after that, you suddenly have like, okay, now you start to put some parsley.
Just open the airlock a crack, it'll be all right.
It's all right. It'll be fine, man. Just a little wind. We're giving you a little air. He's gone. Forget it.
Yeah. I'm not sure. RPG Grandma, you got cut off there. She was something.
So Mage told us the story about Starjammer and his old lady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember some stuff. I can't remember it all.
That was one thing about
Surrounded by skunk checking her out. Yikes.
it's
It's a shame. It's a shame they do what they do, because I got to admit, skunks are kind of cute. But they do what they do, so they're verboten. Thank God they don't live around here.
So I knew a vet, and she found a baby skunk, and she was going through school. She's like, well, doing this, and none of her professors would stay around her while she was working on the skunk, trying to get it. Yeah, apparently, if you remove the anal glands, they're not so bad. But yeah.
But you got to do that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I hate saying this. If you have a dog, have it done anyway. They smell a lot less. It's. We had a dog, and boy, she smelled a lot better after that. But yeah, those are. But there's a lot of things in there that we're looking at. But give them kind of the personalities. It's like, what will this animal do? Especially if it's kind of unknown to players, because players will do all sorts of weird things. Like anyone that's played around with a hognose snake, what's the first thing that they do? A hognose snake, if you screw around with it, will flip on its back and pretend it's dead. And it's, could you imagine that the players come over and they're like, I'm doing this, and also it flips over like, why does it look like it's dead? So yeah, it's
I mean, the players that I've always had, it's like they'll probably want to make it a damn pet.
What? And what's wrong with that?
Companion or some shit.
Interesting. But now all of a sudden, the players starting to make the animals into pets, and like, all right.
You can't really blame them. Most of us have, pets, and there's a reason for it. It's a very human thing. I mean, you don't see any other real animals doing that. You know what I mean?
Ants, Nathan.
Okay.
I play with you. You come up with some fucked up disease or something.
Oh, so Mel's bitching at me because you'll come up with some shit.
So you know what?
I befriend this beautiful little thing, and guess what? It's got rabies or got me pregnant or some shit.
Yeah, so
and so she's just like kills everything with fire. That's bullshit. She's a murder hobo anyway, so don't worry about it.
Hey Mel, you're welcome to hang out on the show anytime, Mel.
I see. Hi to everybody. So just put your head in here. She's naked.
I'm just afraid that when she says shits, the pet gets you pregnant. Is what are you doing behind the scenes there?
No, I mean it's it's a space pet, so it gets you pregnant by licking your arm or some weird space weirdness. Come on, man.
Oh. Speaking of, here's always a little bit different than Alien, but you know those bot flies that land and all of a sudden they can put things in the players.
Dude, that's freaking.
I love watching those removal videos on YouTube. Love it. There's
No, dude.
It's great.
I saw one of those videos where a guy was pissing those things out, so to speak. No thanks.
Wait a minute. And when they get the kitten with the bot fly up the nose, and the mouse, they like pull it out. And, yeah. I mean, there's so many things that you can get there. Yeah, I mean, but there's so many cool things you can do with the animals that are. Well, what do you have to do with this? Well, it's a medicine rather than a gunfight all the time. Especially, it's like, well, if you don't have a flamethrower, all the players like, we don't carry guns, we carry flamethrowers with us the entire time.
Oh man,
that's okay. I've been reading, enough books about diseases and things like that.
That's the big thing. I mean, so we're talking about that. So in your games, are you guys all in like environmental suits and all that stuff?
It depends on what kind of game you want to play.
Let's say it's a breathable. Okay, so this is what you got. It's a breathable atmosphere, because I guarantee that's the biggest trope when you're about to land on a planet. Can we breathe? Yeah. Okay, let's go. But do people like wear respirators or full body whatevers or?
Well,
if they're smart, they keep that gear with them.
Well,
if they're smart, they keep that gear with them. But sometimes if the world's been established, there's a minor starport there or something like that, then it really depends on the mood you're trying to set. I find that using the vac suit is you can really get the feeling of claustrophobia, if that's what you're trying to impart to your players. If you want them to feel in the most danger you can possibly be in, tell them they need to wear their spacesuit.
No.
Well, and he's right. How do you want the game to feel? Most of the time, I want to play more of the. I want to play the pulp style, heroic, romantic.
Original Star Trek, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, love it. But if you really want to get it dark, real quick, just tell them they got to put their spacesuit on, and then suddenly they're worried about every corner of every table ripping a hole in their suit.
I just the problem is that some of these things were fun when I watched them when I was a little kid, and now I'm just like, yeah, they're just so bad. It's just so terrible. Star Trek being one of them. Except Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan is the best.
Wrath of Khan is badass, though. I give you that. Balance of Terror. That's my favorite Star Trek. When they meet the Romulans for the first time.
No, man. Mirror. Best Star Trek ever.
That's not a bad episode, but
what about the ones where they're mining and they find the little rock or the?
That one's good.
Yeah, because we're talking about alien fauna here.
You talking about the Horta, the giant hamburger patty?
Yeah, it's like a Zorn. It like goes through. It moves through the rock. Yeah,
my dad and I would crack jokes every time we saw that freaking thing, because it was always on Saturday. And Saturday, back in the day, was when your old man would break out the barbecue. You're gonna make freaking hamburgers that day. It's Saturday. It's kind of like a religious thing. And he would just be like, he'd come up with something funny to say, because Star Trek used to be on at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturdays.
The old UHF stations.
No, regular TV, Channel 5 here in California. Yeah, Saturdays were great for TV if you were a nerd and didn't want to go out.
Have you been in California your whole life, Shadow?
Off and on. I've moved around, and I came back after a bunch of years away.
Did you ever watch the Creature Features out of San Francisco?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I want masks like Han and Leia in the
just little.
What the hell was that thing called in the asteroid?
The giant Minox.
Yeah, the Minox were with the little bird things that lived in it. Yeah, that was a great freaking sci-fi creature. I mean, that was.
You know,
I always wondered if that thing gave the Imperials some hell, because I could see that being pissed. Right? It came out chasing, and then it kept coming, and it just started to attack the Star Destroyer. I always thought that. I always thought when I was a kid, when I saw it in the theater, I asked my mom, I'm like, that space monster, did it attack the bad guys?
Well, it probably did, because it's just like the normal worms. You know, it comes out and then goes right back into its hole.
Like
and,
the tube worms or whatever.
Yeah, he's like, well, see, tube worms are a great one. Again, there's so many great worms. Those old blood worms, those weird looking things, the teeth, and yeah, I mean, there's lots of creepy things that you can go out there and you know, go mine real monster. Go mine real animals, and then just start throwing them in there, and then adding new stuff to them. You know, whether we realize it or not, it's just look at you know, tarantulas with their poisonous little hairs, you know, which they spray out. You know,
like hairs poisonous? I didn't know that.
Yes, the hairs. What they do, you know, when they like if you bother a tarantula, it'll flick the little hairs out. Those are.
You know what's even grosser? When you see a wasp dragging a fucking dead tarantula around. That is nasty. I'm like,
it's not dead.
It's been stuck, or it's been frightened, or whatever. Yeah,
it's been paralyzed, so they can put the little, you know, what you can do to players too. Oh, look, we've impregnated you, and now let's see what comes out.
All about impregnating.
Hard pass. I'm not built for that. Despite what you know.
You know what?
I'm totally not built for that.
You're just food. Yeah. You're just food. It just takes them a little longer. That's all. You know, they're just making sure you stay fresh. Like, oh,
yeah.
Oh, and well, that's where, you know, the horrible thing is. You know, we're talking about this, but if anyone ever looks at what is it called, the mistletoe. The mistletoe actually grows into the tree.
Yeah,
so when you cut it off,
it's a parasitic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even if you cut off the mistletoe, it just grows right back, because you have to really cut all of everything that goes into the wood itself.
I didn't know that.
So could you imagine a player? It's like, oh yeah, you have this disease, and you have to cut it off every so often, but it's still growing.
Again, you're reminding me of that old creepy magazine. I forget which one. On the cover, it's got this spaceship. You're looking at it from like your spaceship on the cover. And there's a spaceship with like moss and green shit growing on it, and the crew have to go into the ship because they're stupid. And I mean, you just nuke that from, you know, the way he's light that ship up. Sorry, no salvage today, boys. But you know what? At least you're not all going to start turning green.
Yeah, it's like, remember like the tree man? Like there's that like that genetic problem where they it starts to look like bark on their skin.
Yeah. Well, that's
something like that.
Yeah, that's the form of herpes. It starts being
it's like it's some sort. Yeah. Then you have that that's part of your infection, and it just never goes away. So you have this crusty crap growing out of you. A horn first growing out of your arm every.
I mean, you know, we're all talking about this, but boy, you start mutating players and stuff. You're like, what happened to this nice, you know, village? You know, that's you know, the question is, do you want to terrify your players? Do you want to make the sense of wonder? I think that's part of it is, and if you make everything a horror film kind of thing, that's fine if that's what you're going for. If you're playing an aliens type game,
right?
But if you try and play more of the heroic fantasy, then you don't want to go that direction all the time. You want to make all the weird and wonderful stuff, and you know that's where the John Carter.
It's right here, Grandma.
You know, other things in there, so that's what I like. The phonics are out of control. The
Crinoid. You guys remember 1999? That show?
You know, I watched the very first episode of it a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to watch that, but I'm also trying to watch the original The Prisoner. Two shows that I never got to see.
That is my show, The Prisoner. I love it.
I only made it through about 45 minutes or so of The Prisoner, and it you know, as slow as it is, I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be good. I can just tell.
Watch it. It's fantastic. You being
I'm on it, dude.
You being the individual of, you know, self-reliant individual, dude, you're gonna love it. Just give it a chance. It's very 60s. Yep. Give it a chance. It's great.
I'm on it. And with Space 1999, It was okay, also dry and slow. But
Canadian.
you know, it's got a lot of famous people before they were famous, and I want to get through it. But you know, it took me up until what was it last year to finally watch Blake 7. Growing up hearing about it, you know, for years and years and years, and then James L's like, nope, you got to watch it. I'm like, I guess I got to watch it.
Did you
So
like it? I didn't like Blake 7.
oh, freaking loved it, man. Avon was the one of he's you know, Boba Fett used to be like one of my all-time favorite sci-fi characters. He's like tied with Avon now. So
I mostly
that
just like the theme song.
Jackie just loves the theme song from Blake 7.
Oh, you need to watch
it's funny.
UFO.
I'm gonna watch that one too. That one looks a little bit more fun.
Fun.
But I was walking by Jackie's room and I'm like, I recognize that music. I go in. It's like, what's that music? Oh, it's the theme song from Blake 7. I'm like, you gotta watch the show, good. You gotta watch the show. Just
No, but there's an episode of Space 1999. It's There Be Dragons Here, I think is the episode. And I won't ruin it for you, but there's a great like space monster in that one that's really freaking creepy.
in which one? UFO?
The episode Space 99, I think it's like There Be Dragons Here, I think is the episode's name. It's really good. Check that out. Check out that space monster. It's creepy.
I tried watching Lex there, Grandma, but it was just a little too.
Oh, Lex, Grandma.
Oh, wow, that's
The greatest German Canadian produced show ever.
It was around the same time as that other show, Lost Girl or something, where they were just throwing just all kinds of, you know, stuff in my science fiction when I wasn't in the mood for it. Just, I don't know. You know, if it's done tastefully, I'm okay. But when it's like overly gratuitous, it's just like you guys are just doing this to get ratings.
It's
You know what I
funny
mean?
because when you watch Lex, you think it's like overly titillating. It's really not. I mean, there is a kind of like a sensuality aspect to it, but most of it isn't. And it's just strange. It's great. It's just crazy stories and these crazy characters. The main guy, Stanley Tweedle's an abject coward, but he's the only one that controls this living ship, the Lex, and it's just, and then you got this badass, this dead assassin, and it's just a bonkers movie. It's a lot of fun though. It's a fun show.
it's definitely it's weird.
It's a weird show.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a couple seasons of it.
Didn't we start watching that, baby? And you're like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
No taste. That's why she's with me, guys.
Hey, tell her, you know what? She's welcome on the show anytime. You guys come together. You're kind of like a.
Come here,
really
say
great-
hi. She's gonna come over and say
right?
hi. She's in her underwear, just playing Skyrim. That's it. She just pew 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 pew. She's murder hoboing on Skyrim.
Yeah, but it reminds me, I'm kind of tempted to buy Elden Ring. So the old.
Oh, dude, yeah. We've watched a lot of videos of that Elden Ring. It looks pretty awesome.
Well, they have it on sale right now.
heard
Like,
it's
do I
good.
want to pay that much yet or not?
No. Just say hi.
Just put your head over. That's all.
Yeah,
Is
just
he?
put your head right here and say, "Hey, folks." Come on.
Hey, Mel.
Thank
Don't be
you,
shy.
baby.
We've seen you on
World
camera.
Mel,
We've
the
seen you on
world.
camera.
Hi, world.
We've seen you on camera before. You guys make a great pair. You guys ought to do it more often. Seriously, Brian, you bring her on, and your sub count is just going to explode.
I'm telling you, dude. I tell her that. I go, people don't watch me on our channel. They watch you.
I've been into Skyrim lately, like
Like
heads
nuts.
deep.
Crazy.
So,
She's a murder hobo, guys, too.
I kill everything with fire.
Wait a minute. Is she allowed to play Witcher? Has she
No,
played
we
that?
don't have the Witcher one.
Oh, The Witcher 3? That'll suck up your life for a while.
Really?
It's like 150 hours I have, and I still haven't.
No, guys, I got to get her off that machine to play games with me. So don't give her any ideas.
Well, I do have that free pass thing, and it's on there.
Oh yeah, she's got like the Xbox Free Pass or whatever. Gets lots free games or whatever.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
I think let's see, what is? Oh, okay, you're doing on that. I was thinking. what is the Steam? Because Steam's having a sale right now for The Witcher, and I'm trying to see what it is. Oh yeah, it's like $12.
Yeah.
Or $14 for everything.
I hadn't gotten into Steam, y'all. I'm afraid. That's the
Dude.
gateway drug right there.
I gotta
Oh,
keep
yeah.
her, gotta leash her down, or she'll just go crazy.
All right, guys. Bye.
Don't trip.
I'm not tripping.
But,
Yeah, she is.
hey, and I want to see you two guys play a bigger game, longer game, more troops. I saw
We're
the game
supposed
with the.
We were supposed to play today, but somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
And you didn't invite me. You didn't invite me for that.
Oh man, Mel.
Hey, you know what? I got an idea, Brian.
Mhm.
Remember that I forget her name when Mel was playing her friend.
Yeah, Colette. Yeah.
Double team, double
Oh,
date,
dude.
whatever you want to call it. And
They kicked my ass, bro.
invite Holman over. He and Colleen against you and Mel.
You know what I did? I donated a bunch of board games to the library.
Oh, cool.
I donated like 20 board games.
Oh, wow. Really? To David?
Yeah. Most of them were my kids' stuff.
Yeah.
There's some pretty good stuff in there. I it's like stacked up. I'm walking in and like, I heard you guys had a game day. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, there you go. And they're like, well, awesome.
No, David's great for having on. In fact, you can check out the board games, I believe. From the
Oh,
library.
that's cool. That'd be cool. Oh, that'd be cool if you could.
So,
Shadow, you being the collector that you are, brother, I have a complete, almost mint condition of Barney Miller board game. Would you want that? Barney
You're
Miller.
serious?
I'm not.
You're
Yeah,
serious?
it's serious. Barney
Oh my
Miller.
God,
Dude.
I used to love
It's
that
like-
freaking show.
Yeah.
You know, I've lately become aware of.
Oh yeah, it says Barney Miller on it. Mel just asked me, "What's it look like?" Yeah, it says fucking Barney Miller on it. It's like what the. She's gonna bring it. Let you check it out. Oh, it's great.
I'm just waiting for the Welcome Back Cotter board game.
I was thinking the same freaking thing, Omen.
Does
You
that
know what
say
one I hear is the,
Barney Miller?
you know what I heard was the best one of all though is apparently the Dukes of Hazzard game is
Dude,
the
yes, that
is
board
like the
game
shit.
is epic. I used to have it as a kid. Oh man,
Yeah,
awesome.
I heard
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino, who's also a big board game collector, and he likes all the TV show games. No surprise there. But he said that is the one game that plays the most like any of the TV shows of all the ones in his collection. So
Yeah.
I'm on the hunt. But yeah, I would definitely. Yeah, that sounds like a hoot.
Be careful.
My old man and I used to watch that show all the time.
Oh, jeez.
Barney Miller, baby.
That's freaking
Well, wait a minute. For things that are applied to this, we need Koljack the Night Stalker board.
Oh,
game.
dude, they never made a game of it.
I know,
Oh,
but that would be
Oh, that was
perfect.
brand new.
I know. It's like fucking. I mean, everything's there. It's
Wow.
nice.
Wow, dude.
I don't know. I didn't want to donate this because no one. I mean, Barney Miller. What the hell? But yeah,
You know what would happen? You donate it, someone would grab it and throw it on eBay and find
So-
that one weirdo.
this
who
is what I
wants it
did.
more than me.
All those games I donated, and a big black marker on the cover. I said donated by the Cottrells.
No, you
I
didn't.
did too. Yes, I
Why?
did. Because I didn't want that bastard selling it on eBay. I wanted people to play it with it.
Well, David's. Well, I mean, to be fair on that, is David doesn't do that. That's what I like about
Oh, that's I didn't know who it was, but I just didn't want him to just turn around, take it home, and
So, little side note for everyone that's not that doesn't live by us is David gets like he gets like $1,000, I guess, per year to buy board games,
oh, wow.
and then they also donate. And last year, if you went to their board game, they were raffling a couple off, and everyone was getting dice that came in. And
That's cool. At first I took it to the McLean's Children's Hospital because I was going to donate to the family, your room, and whatever for the kids. But they said no, we can't take pre-owned games. It has to be sealed. I'm like, well, fuck, that sucks.
Yeah.
And then I looked for a woman's shelter in town. There isn't one. There's one in Belton, but there's not one here. So I'm like, oh shit, I'll just give it to the library. So, yeah.
Thank you,
See?
man. Hey,
Winners.
I gotta cut
Paint it
the
back.
show. I've got to get to my other show,
Uh-oh.
and I got 50 minutes to smoke and pee. And I want to talk to you guys off camera for a bit. So Jackie, are you still there?
Of course I am.
All right. You got anything you want to add to the show before we hit the road?
Not necessarily, though I will say that tomorrow is UFO Day.
Ooh,
Oh.
nice.
Oh, writing that down.
That's a great
I've
television
actually
show,
had a
too.
weird
What's
couple
that?
of sightings here in Palmdale in the last week.
Wow.
Yep, that's
I
also
live-
something
I
I
live-
recommend you say to
I-
the guys
I live
over on
15
Nathan's
minutes
show.
from Skunk Works.
Wait, what?
We live 15 minutes away from Skunk Works. That's all I'm saying.
Uh-oh.
It's not a UFO, I swear. Oh, you know what? When I lived near Pensacola, everyone was freaking out. Most of the time, I could identify those as it's either a helicopter or a regular plane. But no, it's a big activity of this. Yeah. All UFO means is you don't know what the hell it is. There's been plenty of
Yep.
those.
Yep.
So what were you going to say, son? Jackie?
Jackson.
Oh, all I was gonna say is that you should probably tell the guys over on Nathan's show about tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I will send him this message for you when I get over there. And that's Nathan with the Quantum Show. That's where I'll be heading in about 15, 20 minutes. After I say goodbye to all you guys, have a wonderful weekend. Happy 4th of July. If I don't see you before then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And hopefully it won't be 105 degrees where you are like it is here.
Like it's here,
Even though it's a dry
97
heat, it's Kentucky heat.
With 118 heat index, you know.
It is freaking bad down here.
Well, it was nice today.
It was. We had those clouds, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was cooler, much cooler. I gotta see how my corn's doing.
All right, guys, whatever you guys do,
And hey,
keep it weird.
Mages, congrats. Couldn't
Yep.
happen to a nicer guy. Everybody else, check out Mages Musings channel. Check out RPG Grandma. Anybody else here with a channel besides the Dungeon Minister? I
Weird
think
World War
that's about
II,
it.
suckers.
I'm in the chat. Of course, Brian, your channel, one of my favorites. What do you got coming up in the next week or so there, Brian?
I'm trying to get Mel to convince her to do some gaming. We're gonna finish up our 1937 Battle of Beiping, Japanese, Chinese,
Ooh.
head-to-head, kicking ass with
Wait.
superheroes and super science.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we don't do enough
Love
of
it.
that. Now everyone's so afraid of offending everybody. So who cares?
There's no PC in Weird World War II, baby. So if you have sensitive sensibilities, we're not the channel.
Yeah, I think the same goes here, as you weirdos all know, especially when Jackie starts going into a tear. As you guys know, Jackie's going on vacation, so he won't be on the show unless he's, doing a live stream from Mexico. Hopefully, he'll do that and he'll join us next week,
Very cool.
or on Hungar's channel or DM James. You might see him there. I'm sure if they know he's in Mexico and he's, tuning in, they'll be more than happy to see him. But everybody, have a great weekend. You guys in the chat, love you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. And I will see you guys. I'll be here next week, doing this all over again. So happy trails, and see you guys soon.